Pura Miski. Hare Krishna. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Bastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Swami. Namaste Shamivadi Ashtata Sadhana. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Excuse me, it's gonna eat a lozenge up. Okay, so let's jump in the deep end. 15, 16. Someone like to begin the reading? Wow, quite a few devotees coming in. Wonderful.
This Cherry and Anupma who can read. Yes, all of them can read. Anupma, you got the book, haven't you?
Oh, let me share the screen. I normally do that, isn't it? Yes, why? Okay, share screen. There you go. We have Bhagavatamrta. Yeah, 15, sorry.
13, 14. We read 13, 14 last time, no, Prabhu?
Yeah, 15, 16 now.
Okay. Right. The first covering I entered was that of earth. There I saw the Supreme Lord in the form of a great boar being worshipped by the goddess Earth, the deity presiding over their covering and its wealth. She worshipped him with riches not to be obtained within the universe itself, while all the opulence of the universe whirled within every pore of his body. Commentary. Even when seeing Lord Mahapurusha on Brahmalok, Gopa-Kumara did not see all the opulences of the 14 worlds in every pore of the Lord's body, as he was seeing them now. Each higher world is closer to spiritual perfection, so in each successive world, the Lord reveals more of his infinite glories. The presiding ruler of each higher planet is more elevated than the ruler of the planet below, and still more elevated are the presiding deities of the subtle coverings. So the goddess Earth, in the subtle covering of Earth, stands above Lord Brahma.
Right, so there you go. Now we know above Lord Brahma. It's the residing here. Lord Rahadev is worshipped by the presiding deity or by the goddess Earth. Interesting. Stands above Lord Brahma. All right. Hare Krishna. Okay, you can continue. Well,
And I'm just
17.
how everything is so opulent, even from the beginning. Can you imagine how it's like? We'll never be able to imagine.
Yeah. I mean, even we can appreciate to some degree the wonderful or the creation of this earth. It has some very unpleasant aspects, as we know, and that's true, and that's normally the ones which are been touched by mankind. But there is some beautiful parts of planet Earth, you know. So let alone these higher planets, it must be absolutely astounding. Yeah. But as we spoke last week, I think the idea is that
not to meditate on it.
Yeah, Gopa-Kumar he's aiming for Goloka, so he doesn't want to get distracted by these super realms. Yeah, see how it goes. Yeah, because I read forward a few verses last week, and it comes to that he's has to bypass all of this material opulence. Okay, you can continue, Mother.
Text 17. Within the goddess Earth embodies the subtle causes of creation. I saw the creation itself with all its ingredients. Commentary. As clay is the ingredient cause of a pot, the elements presided over by the deities of the avaranas are the ingredients causes of the universe. Since Earth is the most predominant ingredient within the material universe, the goddess Bhumi appears to be the source of all creation.
Yeah, the source of the creation of Earth. That's what she appears to be. Yeah. Continue. Go ahead.
Text 18. After she finished worshipping the Lord. The goddess honored me as a guest and begged me to remain there to endure for a few days. Text 19. Taking her leave, I quickly crossed beyond that covering as if pulled by some force and reached the other 6. Commentary. All the goddess Bhumi, a first-class Vaishnav, encouraged Gopa-Kumar to stay longer in her domain. He couldn't tarry because the force of his sadhana was impelling him towards the abode of mukti. Text 20:21. One after another, I saw Lords Matsya, Surya, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Sankarsana, and Vasudev, each with one of the great manifested deities of those coverings, worshipping him with the element over which that deity presided. Water, fire, air, ether, ego, or Mahat. Commentary. Gopa-Kumar discovered Lord Matsya in the covering of water, Lord Surya Narayana in the covering of fire, and so on. Text 22. Each covering was a subtle cause of the one before it, and had a greater object of worship, a greater worshipper, and greater sense gratification, opulence, and importance. Commentary. Because the covering made of water is closer to spiritual existence than the previous covering, that of earth. In the watery covering, the Supreme Lord manifests himself more fully in the form of Matsya Deva. Thus, the demigod presiding over the watery covering is greater than the demi-goddess of earth, and the watery enjoyments and opulences surpass the earthly ones. This hierarchy holds true for all the coverings, one after another. Text 23. As before, I crossed over each of these coverings and finally came to the covering made of primordial nature, composed of the most subtle form of ignorance. It was dark blue and attractive to the eyes and mind. Commentary. As before implies that at each stage of his journey, Gopa-Kumara was greeted as a welcome guest by the presiding deity, who requested him to stay and partake of his pleasures of the realm, which Gopa-Kumara politely declined, taking his host's permission to travel on. Finally, he arrived at the covering of prakrti, the source from which all the other coverings evolved. This covering, the original reservoir of tamaguna, appears dark and yet attractive, as described by Arjuna in Sri Hari Vamsa 2.113, 21-22. I perceived a darkness as dense as mind, so concentrated.
Text as dense as mud.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought it was mind. Mud, as dense as mud, so concentrated I could feel its touch. Then I reached a darkness that was dense like a mountain, and again in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 10:89, 47-49. The lost chariot passed over the 7 islands of the middle universe, each with its ocean and its 7 principal mountains. Then it crossed the Loka boundary and entered the vast region of total darkness. In that darkness, the chariot's horses, Sabya, Sugriva, Megha, Pushpa, and Balaka lost their way. Or best of the Bharatas, when Lord Krishna, the Supreme Master of all Master of Yoga, saw the horses in this condition, he sent his Sudarshana disc before the chariot. That disc shone like thousands of suns. Seeing spread anywhere a color like that of my worshipable Lord, I was very much delighted, and I had no desire to go further. Commentary. The beautiful syama color of the prakrti region seemed just like the color of Gopa-Kumar's deity, Sri Madana-gopala. Since the total dimensions of prakrti cannot be measured by any material means, this attractive effulgence seemed to extend infinitely. Gopa-Kumar was so charmed by that color that he felt no impulse to move on. As I arrived, the goddess Prakrti had just finished the worship of her lord, the lord of the region, the effulgent Sri Mohini Murti. The goddess at once approached me in her own superlative form. Commentary. Maya, material nature, was worshipping the Supreme Lord in his female disguise as Mohini Murti, which implies that Sri Mohini Murti is much more attractive than Maya herself.
Mm.
Text 26. She offered me gifts such as Anima Siddhi and other great yogic powers, and like the goddess Earth and the other deities, she asked me to stay. Text 27. She sweetly told me, if you want to achieve your goal of liberation, then please be kind to me, because I am the bestower of liberation. Commentary. One would normally think that to attain liberation, one must reject material nature, but in fact, one achieves liberation when material nature chooses to release one. Text 28. Or, if you want devotion to Vishnu, still you should be kind and worship me, the giver of devotion, for I am his maid servant, his sister, and the embodiment of his energy. Commentary. Pure Vaishnavas do not care for liberation, but still they respect prakrti for other reasons. She is Lord Vishnu's humble servant and sister, born as Subhadra from the womb of Yashoda, and she helps Lord Vishnu's devotees make progress in devotional service. Although Maya is not identical with Lord Vishnu's internal energy, Antarangna Shakti, she is the expansion of that energy embodied in the external elements. Thus, she is non-different from the original energy, just as a person's shadow is non-different from the person.
Right, let's pause there. Any questions or comments here? It's like a space odyssey that Gopa-Kumar is now experiencing, and gives us.
Somebody makes a video of it, a film of this.
Yeah, it'd be a blockbuster. That's for sure.
Like what? Krishna and Gopa-Kumar going.
Yeah. Well, although this is we're hearing about Gopa-Kumar, and at least and of course we understand that this is actual history. It's not just a story. It's a revelation that was revealed by, I think, Janmijaya. I think I might got that wrong, but it's an actual factual thing, factual experience. We will go on similar journeys as well, but at least as far as I've understood from Bhagavad Gita, for the devotees of Krishna, if one has reached a certain level of devotion, say bhava and prema, then they do not experience these different coverings and different realms. They go straight back to Goloka Vrindavan, because this is the path which I think I mentioned before in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sukadeva Goswami speaks of the path of the yogi or the mystic, and by their mystic powers and their devotion to Krishna, accompanied by their mystic cities, then they enter these different ephemeral realms. But as far as if anyone can give any other information on that, but as far as I know, devotees experience, it's just like, it's like waking up from a dream, then one's in the spiritual realm. Of course, that we'll see later when Gopa-Kumar actually meets his worshipful deity, Krishna. Anyways, I'm just trying to highlight that this is not a distant story, which a fantastic story, but it is a fantastic way. It's something because that we will experience. In other words, leaving this body, it'd be quite, I don't know if exciting is the right word, but we will leave this body and we will be, depends on our level of Krishna consciousness. Some might go to the heavenly planets. But what I'm trying to say is this is real. This is actual reality, these different realms and different beings there. Anyway, any comments or questions?
Yeah, I wanted to know this. pure Vaishnavas do not care for liberation, but still respect prakrti for other reasons. I know we respect.
Well, then it's mentioned that. Why? Because she is the Lord's humble servant.
Yes.
So we give great respect. We don't try and conquer prakrti, but we bow down to Maya as being the Lord's servant. So we have great respect for her selfless service that she has to actually do.
Yeah.
She's Lord Vishnu's humble servant and sister, and Subhadra here. So we have Subhadra in our temple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now often Subhadra can be quite a mystery to devotees, her actual tattva. And here it is. Here's something describing Lady Subhadra. She is, but still they respect Prakrti, Lord Vishnu's humble servant and sister, born as Subhadra from the womb of Yasoda. And she helps make progress. So we can pray to Lady Subhadra.
Yeah.
We can pray, please. Subhadra means auspicious. So, oh my dear Subhadra, who are in the midst of your auspicious brothers, Jagannath and Balaram, please, I fall down at your feet. Please, may you assist me and make my progress clear to obtain the lotus feet of the Lord. You can sometimes, not often, but sometimes when I'm doing well, when I'm offering arti, if I'm doing well, my consciousness is somewhat Krishna conscious, then I often form prayers as I'm offering each item like that. I pray to Jagannath, the Lord of the universe, then Lord Balaram, who's sustaining the universe. He's the servant of Godhead. Like that. It's nice to do. You can be absorbed in that while you're making offerings to the Lord, and begging for mercy, begging for grace. Other times I'm just watching the clock and I forget to pray. But yeah, any comments on that or questions? Anything else from Chandravali on that? So I think I cut you off a bit there. Yours.
No, it was I just wanted to understand more.
Yeah. It's good we can keep, because it's good to be mindful when we're taking darshan of the Lord. We can offer some prayers, praying for grace and praying for mercy. Rather than just looking, we can reveal our hearts, and pray. So here, with Subhadra, we're hearing something about the tattva of Subhadra Devi. She's an expansion of that energy. It embodies the external elements. Anyone else know anything about Subhadra? Well, they just see where there's a lot, but I think that's basically it, isn't it? She is the and her expansion is Durga, isn't it? Is that correct? Yeah, she is.
Sorry.
Yeah, her expansion is Durga, as far as I've understood. As far as
Because I was thinking Krishna book, when Krishna asked her to appear, she was like, oh, but then, nobody's going to worship me. No, Krishna then tells that you will be worshipped everywhere by everybody.
Yeah, and there's different names. Then he gives different names, isn't it? Yeah. Of Chandra, yeah, I can't remember them now, but different names of Durga. Yeah, in different places in India. Yeah, so it's all manifestations of Subhadra. Yes. All right.
And is she not so Yogamai's expansion? No?
Yes, I think so. I think you're right. Anybody else know this? Yeah, yoga. I will have to check, but I'll say it's. Go on.
Srila Prabhupada wrote in one of the books that I said, in material energy, she is Bhadra.
Yeah.
And in spiritual.
Bhadra Kali, she's
she's
spiritual.
Bhadra, but in spiritual, she's Subhadra. So Subhadra is all auspicious. But when she turns into a material world, then she's a Bhadra. She make sure that people don't go to spiritual world until and unless they are completely purified.
Yeah, that's a nice explanation. So
Yeah, I heard this too
Bhadra,
as well.
yeah, so Bhadra and Subhadra. Yeah, so Bhadra is the ghastly form, isn't it? Is that the Bhadra Kali? That's the one who's got a garland of skulls, isn't it? Is that the one? The
Yes,
form
I
of
think
Bhadra
so.
Kali,
Yeah.
garland of skulls, and she's got a foot on, I think she's on a demon or something.
Rakshas, yeah, demon, yes.
Rakshasas, yeah. So yeah, we much prefer Subhadra, much more pleasing. Yeah, for the Vaishnavas. Yeah, Subhadra. Yes. All right. Mother Sachari, you have your hand up there. You can read now. Gopa-Kumar is now going to be speaking. Shri Gopa-Kumar Uvacha.
Text 29. Sri Gopa-Kumara said, declining all these enticements, understanding them to be the potency of Lord Vishnu, I bowed down to the goddess and then wandered for a while to see that beautiful colored region. Commentary. Gopa-Kumara had the discretion to reject the gifts offered by Prakriti and her proposal that he stay in her domain, but the atmosphere of that place was pleasing to his mind and senses. So he wanted to stay a little longer to examine its wonders more closely. Text 30. That place was delightful and self-luminous, splendid with the most excellent wonders. Enjoying it with multitudes of living entities, their bodies made of primordial matter. Commentary. Pradhana is the most subtle material energy, for which all other subtle and gross manifestations evolved. The beings Gopa-Kumara saw had bodies of Pradhana, transcendental to the limited names and forms of manifest creation. Pradhana hides the spiritual reality from conditioned souls, but still she is described here as a self-luminous Vilasat Swayam, because when the conditioned souls are enlightened by transcendental knowledge, her darkness dissolves into spiritual effulgence. Text 31. It was inconceivable, utterly enchanting in opulence, and displaying many forms all at once. The whole material creation dwelt within it, with all the elements of creation, subtle and gross. Commentary. Being the root cause of all material transformations, Pradhana naturally displays countless forms within herself, producing wonders powerfully attractive to the conditioned souls. How she works cannot be described in words or comprehended by the material mind. She comprises the entire created world with its perceivable objects and their unseen causes. The most subtle of these causes of material existence are the 5 tanmatras, the abstract forms of raw perception. Though these are not explicitly mentioned here, we can assume that during Gopa-Kumara's travels in the covering region of Prakriti, he passed through the subregions of each tanmatra, for without having crossed them, he could not have become fully eligible for liberation.
Anyone know what the 5-ton matras are? I've heard the phrase before. I can't. Is it the personified senses or the most subtle cause? The most subtle of these causes of material existence are the 5-ton matras. Perhaps if someone could just Google it for us, the ton matras, and see what comes up. It says what they are, the abstract forms of raw perception, but that's quite, I don't get a picture of exactly what the ton matras are. It said abstract forms of raw perception. Anyway, let's see if anyone.
I haven't even heard of that word, Tan Mantra.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Prabhu,
Yes.
It says these 10 mantras embody the 5 Mahabhutas as follows. 5 10 mantras are sound, Shabda, touch, Sparsha, Vision, Rupa, taste, Rasa, smell, Gandha. These 10 mantras are related to each sense organ.
Jai. Google Ki Jai. Google Ki Jai. Great. So now we're clear. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, ton matras. So the senses. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Great. Hare Krishna. Now we can sleep tonight. Now I know what that means. can continue.
It's a Pancha Mahabhuta.
Yeah, Pancha Mahabhuta. 5. Pancha Mahabhutas. Great. Okay, continue, Mother Sarcharik.
Text 32. By the desire of the Lord, I then crossed beyond that vast region of dense ignorance and came to a place flooded with a light so brilliant, so unbearably beyond looking at, that is forced me to close my eyes. Commentary. Attracted by the beauty of the covering formed of prakrti, Gopa-Kumara had no desire to live, but the personality of Godhead, wanting him to reach the abode of liberation, inspired Gopa-Kumara to journey on.
Adhika, just one, Nitai Mata, could you copy and paste it into the chat, please? That definition, if it's possible. Yeah, did you hear that? If you can copy and paste it in the chat. So I would like to keep that as a note. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Mother. Carry on.
Okay. Text 33. With utmost devotion, I struggled to look ahead, and then I saw the Supreme Lord, effulgent like millions of suns. Text 34. Even increasing the ecstasy of my mind and eyes, that all-powerful Lord, adorned with many ornaments and sweet features, and bearing all the signs of an exalted person, revealed himself as the most wondrous form of the Supreme Truth. Commentary. Even though the Supreme Lord's effulgence shone brighter than millions of suns, this appearance of the Lord was delightful to Gopa-Kumara's mind and eyes. A most exalted person should have 32 special marks of perfection on his body, red palms, red soles, and so on. And Gopa-Kumara could see all of these in the body of the Lord. Now that Gopa-Kumara had left behind the covering darkness of Prakriti, the Supreme Lord revealed himself in all his glory, more completely and vividly than Gopa-Kumara had ever seen. Text 35. Although always beyond material qualities, in spiritual qualities he is full. Though formless, he attracts all with his form. Though never directly connected with Prakriti, that infallible Lord appears resplendent in her association as she performs her pastimes under his shelter. Commentary. In the paradoxical ways mentioned here, the personality of Godhead is unique, untouched by the qualities of matter. He has his own countless transcendental qualities, beginning with his affectionate concern for his devotees. He is said to have no form because he never assumes material forms. All material forms, after all, derive from dualities, this and not that, with which the absolute truth never has any connection. In the previous chapter, Lord Mahapurusha was described as a Prakriti's ruler. But the form of the Lord whom Gopa-Kumara is seeing now is not her ruler, but only the shelter in which she acts out her playful pastimes. He is the Supreme Brahman, the presiding deity of the abode of liberation, and he has no contact with material nature. Thus, he is called Achyuta, the Lord whose spiritual glory is never diminished. Text 36. A flood of reverence, fear, and joy overwhelmed me. At that moment, I simply didn't know what to do. Text 37. That self-manifest Lord is beyond the scope of the senses, but one can see him directly by the power of his mercy. There is no other way. Commentary. Only the Lord's grace can empower one to perceive his beauty and the features of his personality. Text 38. I was unable to understand whether I was seeing him with my eyes, with my mind, or with the power of the soul that transcended both. Text 39. Although at one moment I saw him as formless, I remembered the mercy of the Lord of Niladri, and at the next moment I saw him again in his personal form, vastly effulgent. I was full of joy. Commentary. The Supreme Lord whom Gopa-Kumara was perceiving did not actually become impersonal, but when his effulgence intensified, Gopa-Kumara could not see nothing but that effulgence. This is one characteristic of the abode of liberation, that individual distinctions tend to become obscured by the all-pervading divine light from the transcendental body of the Lord. In this instance, however, Gopa-Kumara remembered Lord Jagannath, who was similarly effulgent like a brilliant dark blue mountain. Remembering Lord Jagannath's compassion, Gopa-Kumara thought that no one else could be so as merciful as he. Then when the Lord's personal form again became visible past his effulgence, Gopa-Kumara's ecstasy increased even more. The verb in the Sanskrit text of this verse and the verses that follow are in the present tense, even though the verses describe a past event. This is to indicate that Gopa-Kumara spent a long time in the Mahakalapura, the abode of liberation. Text 40. Sometimes I would begin to merge into the Lord's effulgence, but he mercifully saved me with the touch of the rays from the nails of his lotus feet. Commentary. The reddish nails of Lord Vishnu's toes are like brilliant gems. They are so attractive to his devotees that the devotees never think of giving up their personal relationships with him to dissolve themselves into oneness. Of course, everything about the Lord is supremely attractive, not only his toes, but Vaishnavas generally honor the Lord by beginning their worship from his feet. Text 41. Sometimes my mind felt special pleasure in beholding him, surrounded by the great perfected beings who are his devotees at once different and non-different from him. They surrounded him in subtle spiritual forms like beams of light around the sun. Commentary. The Supreme Personality of Godhead always invites his part and parcel jivas to share loving reciprocations with him. Even in the abode of liberation, he kindly considers the liberated souls who surround him. They're his bhaktas, but actually they are hardly interested in personal service. The only bhakti they offer the Lord is to decorate him as particles of his effulgence. Although they are eternal, indissoluble individuals, their separate personalities are now dormant and invisible. Like all other jivas, they are both different and non-different from the Supreme, like the rays of light shining from the sun. In spiritual substance, they are one with the Lord, but they have autonomous identities with their own consciousness, their own bodies, and their own small capacity to control. Text 42. The huge treasure of ecstasy I thus obtained inundated my mind. I became like a self-content sage or like a man whose ambitions have been fulfilled. Commentary. Gopa-Kumara became like a self-content sage or a materialist, not one in fact. He had actually been contented with himself and his situation. He would no longer have been driven by the urge to seek his worshipable Lord. Text 43. A flood of thoughts supported by logic made me conclude I have reached the supreme destination, the highest perfection of life. Text 44. Tossed by the waves of ecstasy intrinsic to that abode, my mind was overwhelmed as if the awareness of my goal had vanished. Commentary. Having worshipped Sri Madana-gopala for a long time in all sorts of places, Gopa-Kumara was familiar with Lord Madana-gopal's unique beauty. Why did Gopa-Kumara now think that Mahakalapura and its Lord were the final goal of his life? As explained here, the powerful influence of that realm confused him, temporarily diverting to another form of the Lord, his determination to worship Madan-Gopal. Text 45. 1 second. Yet because of the following the divine instructions of the great saintly devotee, and because of the strength of my service to the transcendental mantra, my hankering to see my own eyes, the lotus feet of my worshipable deity never fully disappeared. Commentary. By the mercy of his divine spiritual master, Gopa-Kumara never lost his eagerness to see with his own eyes the lotus feet of Sri Madan-Gopal, and this eagerness was what impelled him to travel higher and higher in search of his Lord, never wanting to stay in any place where Madan-Gopal was absent.
Hare Krishna. Perhaps we'll just pause there. So there's a certain theme to this Brhad Bhagavatamrta, which is quite self-evident here. Is that and one time my spiritual master, he was speaking on this point quite a few times, and he speaks of it also in Sankalpa Kaumudi, that we will be on our spiritual path, different realms of perfection or different situations will be apparently on offer to us on the transcendental plane. And my spiritual master was speaking of, as he speaks of in Vilapakusmanjali, those are familiar with that book, of Rati or Raghunath Das stroke Rati Manjari being offered to become one of the Gopi associates of Radharani. This is for example. But he doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to be like Vishaka. He doesn't want to be like Lalita. He wants to serve Radharani. So that's his quest. Yeah, but he gets offered different levels of perfection by Radharani. So that's why you might have heard Shivaram Swami often mentions this point, that we should be like, as sadhans, should have a specific goal that we want to achieve. It may be unclear now, but as we engage in bhakti and we engage in chanting the holy name, it should be that we're developing a desire to obtain a specific position of service to the divine couple. And that's and that will, and so here it's similar, or the same actually. Gopa-Kumar, his worshipful deity is Madana-gopala, but it seems like here he's become a little bit bewildered by the internal energy, no doubt, and he's thinking he has reached a place of perfection, but he has not as yet. So we're on the same journey. That's why this account is so interesting. There's lots of correlations that we can make with our Pacific spiritual path. Yeah. So like, yeah. So we have we hopefully the more details should be becoming fulfilled. In other words, it's not just about going back to Godhead. Oh, I don't care. Let me just get back to Godhead somehow. No, you want to get back to do a specific service, serve Krishna in a specific way, and you meditate upon that before you get there, and you follow in the footsteps of particular servants who embody that type of service. This is all in Nectar of Instruction, so Nectar of Devotion, and Ujvala Nilamani, etc. I was just reminded of that, hearing of Gopa-Kumar.
But would you not be in that mood as you get to that stage? Like Gopa-Kumar is at that level there. He's got Madan Mohan in his mind and he's going ahead. So would you not be like firmly fixed in your goal?
Yeah, you should be, and you will be. Be firmly fixed. So anyway, this is what is required. Ekaha Kuranandana, as described in Bhagavad Gita. But here we're seeing, for example, Gopa-Kumar is hesitating. He seems to, but I think as we read the next verses, he will go on. But we might get, devotees might get tempted for something lesser, something grand, a transcendental position. But just this is the goal of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, is to be servants of Radharani. Yeah, we don't. So that's, we should be, if we're blessed, we should be fixed on that type of goal.
Okay, so if he is kind of dithering, so any soul that's a little bit dithering, and then decides, okay, this is I've come to the end and I want to stay here. So then
they stay there.
Yeah, they stay. Then after a while, if they then realize that they made the mistake, they need to carry on going, are they able to keep going?
Interesting question. Well, it seems like here, if we can take the example of Gopa-Kumar, it seems like although I'm thinking as well that even before one gets to these different levels of transcendence, quite a few get sidetracked just by the offerings that the material world gives a devotee. They don't even make it out. They get sidetracked by the opulences that may come from the practice of bhakti, the material, quote unquote, opulences, Twangarangini, wealth, followers, distinction, etc. One may well get sidetracked. That's why we have to be determined. That's why I keep the association of devotees and always hearing, make sure we don't get distracted.
Why I'm asking is because in Bhagavad Gita it says after 1,000 and 1,000 who will endeavor, only one will make it. So yeah. So this is still an endeavor, isn't it, to go on the way back? So that's why I'm thinking that even when we endeavor, you after thousands, you might still not make it because you
whatever, we will not go backwards, that's for sure. We mentioned the other day, there is no loss or diminution. Yeah. And also we have the dispensation in this present age of the appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is gifting readily, wholesale, something that's generally not generally something that's not obtainable by people in general, but by his grace, this highest perfection is attainable. But it's not exactly the same as when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was personally present. He was giving it out without any practice, any specific practice. He was just giving it out indiscriminately. Now that's still there, but we have to follow a particular kind of, so we have to follow particular spiritual practices as given to us by Lord Chaitanya's immediate followers, Rupa Goswami. So we have to apply ourselves to a specific process of bhakti. You understand? So it's not, there is a difference. It's not exactly the same when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was here. We get gifted with the process of bhakti, but we have to apply ourselves to achieve different levels. It's not like one walks in a temple, gets overwhelmed with prema. It's not like that. So we're on the path still. Sorry, going in different directions here, but just highlighting this spiritual journey. Anybody else on that? Any questions on that? Yeah, it's quite. Now let's read on a bit.
Prabhu,
yes.
What is the answer for Mother Chandravali's question, Prabhu?
Can you say it again? The question?
Mother Chandravali asked the question whether can that person realize later and I'm at the wrong place like that. So can then that person proceed?
Yes, just like we've heard the story where Gopa-Kumar.
Yeah.
Well, Gopa-Kumar was in certain realms, like for instance, he was in Indraloka, and then he saw Lord Brahma, and he became attracted to Lord Brahma and his great opulences. And then when he was in Brahmaloka, he saw some great sages who come from the great Sapta Rishis. And
but we can't do that, isn't it, Prabhu? Because if we go there, then we have to come back here again to go.
That's exactly what I was asking for. Do we then come back all the way back? Or
But,
is there we could carry on going up again?
Yeah, this is now if we take on the general sojourn of materialistic life for a materialistic person who's practicing karma kanda and they're engaged in pious activities, then they may get elevated to the higher material realms of Indraloka. But then they may come back again after a certain point, as described in Bhagavad Gita, after their pious activities are exhausted. Then they return to the material realms, to the planet, to the earthly sphere. Again, so there's this Ferris wheel. But what we're speaking of here is above the material worlds.
Yes.
Yeah. So there one is progressing. Although I mentioned for the 7% devotees of the Lord, they will go straight back to the Lord's abode. But here, Gopa-Kumar is going on this space odyssey, and he's entering into different fantastical transcendental realms. So if a yogi stroke devotee is going on this path, then he's not going to return back to the material world. He may stay in one of these realms of perfection. But then, like Gopa-Kumar, he may get association, because don't forget, there's interplanetary travel. So these great yogis and sages and great demigods like Brahma, then they appear in different realms. So one continues one's journey in the same way as we took to spiritual life, because it's another part of our journey. In a previous life, Prabhupada explained, and as we know, we were practicing some type of bhakti. Therefore, we became attracted, or were born in a situation where bhakti was easily practiced. So let's take ourselves as an example. We have already been in different lives practicing bhakti. And now we're practicing bhakti again in this life. And now we're hearing about Lord Chaitanya. And now we're hearing about Goloka Vrindavan. So, and now we're associating with devotees. Now, of course, having said that, within this realm, there isn't, if one can, through wrong association or improper practice of bhakti, one may even lose the human form of life. This is the danger. Just like Jad Bharat, of course, he remembered. So, and there's even stories of devotees, I forget, is in the Krishna book. One devotee who became a demon because of bad association. Yeah. So we have to be careful in our spiritual practice. We have to be careful in this material realm. Yeah. But just that point, just that if we can appreciate, it might help us to appreciate the journey that Gopa-Kumar's on, and also answering the question of Mother Chandravali, is that we are on the journey ourselves. You know, it wasn't when I think back and I think of where I was born, and the association I had when I was born, and not when I was born, when I was a bit older, and the things I used to contemplate the future. I don't know, speak about myself too much, and I concluded that in the future, I'm going to be doing something I would never, ever dream. It would be a complete different life. I actually understood that, but I didn't know what it was. I knew I'd be doing something completely different that no one would understand. And I couldn't work out what it was, but I was searching. So I went hitchhiking. I was looking for that thing I knew would be a complete different experience to what I've experienced so far. So I just think of myself as an example. I'm sure you've all got your own stories as well. So the Lord, as he's inspiring Gopa-Kumar from within to go forward. So the Lord is super soul. He's inspiring us to go forward. Life after life, he is with us, and he's given us good counsel. So you could say the conclusion that we are on the same adventure as Gopa-Kumar. Perhaps not exactly the same in all of its detail, but we've been in this material world a long time, and we may have been practicing bhakti here for a long time. And we may not have, and we may have pressed the pause button on our Pacific practice for a few lifetimes. because we may not have had various things, the material world. We may not have had the association devotees. Anyone going on a bit here? Anyone got any reflections on that? These points? Yeah, the particular families you are in, the things that are going on in your life, the Lord within, you are on a journey. Yeah. And especially if we're chanting the holy name, then that journey will be progressive. If we're chanting without offense, it will be a progressive journey. So quite exciting, isn't it? All right. Any questions or comments on that? Something to think about. Let me read a few more minutes. 5-2, text 46. Okay, let's continue on our journey, shall we? Is that a good idea? Anyone out there? Yes or no?
Yes.
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 Go for it. Let's continue our journey back to Godhead through Bhagavatamrta, text 46. Rather, the more I looked at the effulgent Lord Mahakala, the stronger arose my long-standing greed to see the object of my worship. The deity I worship seemed pulled by force onto the path of my remembrance. Okay. So this this Mahakala in the effulgence is very reminiscent of Madana-gopala. So commentary. If Gopa-Kumar was truly interested only in Sri Madana-gopala, what was the value of being in a place more exalted than Brahmaloka? The answer given here is that his vivid and extended darshan of Lord Mahakala intensified his remembrance of Madana-gopala and his hankering to see the Lord in person, not just in his heart. In other words, Gopa-Kumar was not satisfied to worship his Lord only by passive meditation. Yeah, because that's what was going on in this realm. Yeah. Text 47. Because of that greed, even though I beheld the Supreme Lord right before me, I could not feel as satisfied as before. I was disturbed by the fear that I might merge into him, as was likely to happen in that abode. Commentary. Even though the presence of Lord Mahakala greatly intensified Gopa-Kumar's greed to see Lord Madana-gopala, Gopa-Kumar did not feel as happy here as on the other planets he had visited. The various forms of the Supreme Lord he had seen elsewhere had not inspired a remembrance of Madana-gopala as intense as in Mahakalapura. But at least on those other planets, Gopa-Kumar had been in no danger of merging into the object of his meditation. All right, so this is the first time he's had this challenge, if you want. You can this great effulgence, which is the hue of his Madana-gopala. So he's feeling this, he's concerned about being this attraction to merge. If he were to merge and forget the separate existence, he would also forget his desire to join Madana-gopala's pastimes. Okay, 48. I was thinking that if I returned to this Vraj Bhumi, I would fulfill my desires. And then I heard some wonderful singing and music. Okay, let's. And enlivened, looking all around, I saw someone riding on a bull, a unique person arriving from a higher region. Okay, who is this? Who might this be riding on the bull?
Lord Shiva?
Yeah, let's see. Who rides on the bull? None. Yes, correct. Free-eyed, white like camphor, dressed only by the sky. That exquisitely beautiful person carried a trident and bore the half moon on his head, his matted locks brilliantly adorned by the Ganga, his body was smeared with ashes and graced by the charming garland of bones. I think this is the first time that Lord Shiva's been mentioned, isn't it? In his sojourn so far. Can anyone remember Lord Shiva being mentioned before?
Yes, in the first,
Oh, really?
first part of this book, first one, we are doing volume 2, but in volume 1, he was mentioned.
Okay, okay. All right. Commentary. Lord Shiva's garland of bones was in fact auspicious and beautiful. Oh, and I never knew this because it was made from the bones of departed Vaishnavas. There you go. So you could do that if you you might get some strange reactions from devotees. Amazing, huh? He has a garland of bones made from the bones of departed Vaishnavas. Perhaps I should sell them in the shop.
Well, we got
Yes,
this.
good idea.
The Deity Muni, he gave up his body, and from the bones of his body, they made an arch, something that Sitaji's
Vajrayuk.
wedding was used.
Yeah. I think Mother Guy is involved in the shop. Perhaps you could mention this.
Are we gonna dig someone up?
Yeah, you have to. You
They
have to
can
get.
volunteer.
Well,
No.
yeah, they can volunteer.
Digger.
Perhaps perhaps
Samadhi
we could,
digger. No, that's gruesome.
yeah, perhaps we could start like we could put a notice up on the board. You know, would you like to donate your bones to make
Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Anyway, Vaishnavas normally have their bodies cremated or they're put in samadhi. But anyway, Lord Shiva. All right, perhaps on that auspicious note of a garland of bones made by departed Vaishnava, Lord Shiva, we can stop there. And that's, excuse me, I just realized yesterday that I thought yesterday was Thursday. So at the end of the class, I was saying, "Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. There's a big festival going on." But I forgot.
I thought you were saying that for the Bhagavad Gita people. Notice that.
Yeah. I just realized at night, actually. Oh, why did I say that? Anyway, I say that now. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone, for this week's Krishna Katha. And hope you have a wonderful weekend. Lots going on at the weekend. Festivals at the manor, etc., etc. Okay, so we'll pick up from next week, next Thursday, on this garland of bones from Lord Shiva. Okay, thank you, everyone. Go to Premanande, Hare Bol, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Hare Hare,
Prabhu ki
Hare Ram, 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 Hare Hare.